Hi, everyone. We're here once again. We'll try this countdown thing. I don't know if it worked, but we're here again with the E-XPO, which is basically just a way that the way we used to do the expos, and we would kind of mingle and talk among different vendors and managers, and so we're trying to do this once again, but in a virtual way. So here we are, and today we have a very special guest with us, and we will introduce in a few minutes. But before we do that, we let's start with our regular hosts that are here typically with us. And so we'll start with Aneta.
Hey everyone, it's Aneta with BandCal Property Management. I'm one of the community association managers, and we deal with a lot of HOAs and also rental communities in San Francisco.
Thank you, Aneta. Welcome back. And Mark.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Mark Owens. I'm the president of Reliant Construction Management. We are a full-service construction management firm. Our office is in San Francisco, but we do work throughout the entire Bay Area, North Bay, South Bay, East Bay, Peninsula. And we have a six-member team that do everything from scope development to capital improvement projects, defect reconstruction, risk management, fire life safety. And we've been around since 2009.
Thank you, Mark. And don't let his background fool you. It's just that he's at home today, but he's still same guy. How about Brian?
Hi, I'm Brian Garcia. I'm with Restoration Management Company. We are a full-service disaster recovery company. So we take care of water intrusions, fire damage, smoke damage, biohazards, asbestos and lead, with 13 branches throughout the U.S., branches all throughout California, Seattle, Denver, Phoenix, and Dallas, Texas. So we're here to help you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Oh, wow. Thank you, Brian. And we have Daisy.
Hi, I'm Daisy Ortiz. I'm marketing manager at IQB Construction and Roofing. We're your Bay Area's construction and roofing specialists. We go from Concord all the way down to Monterey, and we do interior renovations, exterior decay repairs, and everything that has to do with roofing.
Thank you, Daisy. We also saw a little fellow there that's part of this meeting today with Aneta. What's his name, Aneta?
This is Mango. He's a 5-month-old pounder. He just wanted to make a guest appearance today.
That's not our special guest today, but you know, it's also there. Well, my name is Daniel. I'm with Endure Painting. We do interior, exterior, residential, commercial, and we also focus on HOA properties. We do pretty much all exterior surfaces for painting, all the preparation that's required for painting, and that's pretty much what we do. We do work on the entire Bay Area, and you know, we do work on a little bit North Bay and South Bay. But today we have with us Kelly. So Kelly, would you introduce yourself to us? Let us know who you are.
Hi, I'm Kelly Zibell. I'm the president for Associated Northern California. We manage homeowners associations, just homeowners associations, commercial and residential homeowners associations in Northern California, pretty much from the Oregon border all the way down to Fresno. Monterey is kind of the south end, and San Francisco up to Auburn area. So all over Northern California. Is sort of where I live in my car in most days.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure that's you're quite busy there. Well, thank you, Kelly, for accepting our invitation today. We're honored to have you here with us today, and I'm sure that there's people that are going to be watching this, and it will be helpful just to know a little bit more about Associa and what they're doing. And so we kind of want to get started with just one simple question, and it's a simple question, but it has a lot of depth in it because we know that a lot of things have changed. And so the question is, what has changed for you, Kelly? What since COVID started? What has changed for you?
Ugh, well, I mean, like personally, homeschooling a kindergartner is super fun. That was a challenge between my husband and I. He works in tech, so fortunately, he's able to be at home while we're essential workers and trying to deal with our community. So he's able to help with my son, but I also help with my son. So that has certainly been a challenge, being at home with him and homeschooling. I'm glad he's just in kindergarten because they do not do anything the way that I learned it in school. And if I had to do more complicated math, it would be interesting. Professionally, I mean, I miss my team. I have a very spread out team. We have 7 offices, and previously I got to go and interact with my team regularly. We would get together regularly. We can't do that. You can't have large gatherings. I can't really intermix between offices. We also have cohorts in our offices, so we're with the same kind of group of people for the days that you're in the office, and trying not to cross between people and keep everybody safe. So that has been a challenge, not being able to see my team in person and trying to connect with everybody. In terms of clients, I actually am loving the prevalence of Zoom or WebEx or the online meetings. I can get to and be a part of many more client meetings than I was able to before, because I can do 2 meetings in one night depending on when they're spaced and be able to drop in and connect with clients because I'm not having to deal with driving from one meeting to the next. And so that has been really good because I feel like I'm able to get in and really meet and interact with many more clients on a regular basis than I was able to before. So that part has been nice. I miss seeing our business partners. I miss the industry events as much as, everybody's trying to push out communication and education and being a part of that. Everybody gets Zoom fatigue and being on webinars and stuff like that. It's hard not to double task when your email's sitting here next to you versus if you're at an industry event and sort of being forced to pay attention to the content that's going on. I think some of the education is good, and it's good that we're publishing it and putting it out as an industry, but I think we're not necessarily getting as much retention of the information as we were before. So it's so many things have changed, all the things. And they're just, and everybody thought, oh, this is going to be 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Right. And when this all happened in March, and, here we are 8 months later having this conversation and everything is largely the same. And this is, the new normal. And I think we'll be continuing to live into this well into 2021.
Yeah,
True. How have you been finding your interactions with your residents, with your homeowners associations? Have they been more demanding of you during, or of your company during all of this? Have they been having additional requests as far as things that pertain to COVID and keeping their community safe?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was really quiet the first couple of weeks we went into shelter in place. And Annette, I see you nodding your head, because I think everybody was freaked out and just like, I'm going to go shelter in place. And there weren't a lot of calls. But then it was like, oh, I'm stuck at home, so I'm going to notice all these things that I don't normally notice. There's all these additional demands on the buildings that we don't normally have because you have everybody at home. And so then the calls started to dial up. And then in July, when everybody got notifications from all the schools that they were then going to be homeschooling their children until January, it was like, let me just level this up to the next step. And people do not have a lot of grace with each other, with their vendors, with their, neighbors, with their property managers. Everybody has kind of got a short fuse. And we talk about it as a company that, it's probably not that one thing that they're calling you about that they're upset about. There's the 10 other things that are going on in their life. Their job has changed, their home life has changed, they've got all these other things going on. And this one thing about the light being out or the sprinkler going too long or whatever at the building is setting them off, and it's coming out in a really negative way. So the volume of communication has gone up, and the tone of the communication has certainly gotten, I think, much more negative or challenging and demanding. And I've heard it from every business partner that we work with and every manager that I've connected with that, you know, because everyone's at home, they're working 24/7, and they sort of expect that everyone else is working that way. So they expect their manager to be on all the time and working for them all the time. And they expect their attorney to, you know, be working 24/7 and responding to them. And everybody wants an instantaneous response, and that gap of, hey, you know, give us 1 or 2 business days to get out there and address this. This isn't an actual pants on fire emergency is not there anymore.
That's so good what you said, because we as vendors, we have to be mindful of that too, and in doing like a little bit extra to help ease that like frustration and stress that homeowners are carrying. And so, like for instance, for me, as we're painting, you know, we're setting ladders into the buildings, and sometimes like the guys will kind of, you know, lay them a little bit harder than they should, and you know the homeowners are there; they can hear it. So now we have to talk about these things. It's like, hey, you know, we got to be more careful, even extra, in trying to make sure that we understand where they're coming from and what they're going through, and just watching out for them. Because, like you said, you know, the noise there, it builds up and all these things, and then they end up calling the managers and saying, hey, you know. And it's just a pile of different things. That's so good. Just being considerate.
Mm-hmm.
Kelly, going off of what you said, and Daniel, what can we do as vendors to help, like property managers or yourself, in these times?
Well, I think it's always helpful to understand what you guys are dealing with, because I know that there are PPE requirements now for you. There, depending on the county that you're working in, there are county requirements that you have to follow. On job sites, you have to have a COVID inspector, all of these things. And I don't even know the whole extent of it, right? I mean, there's probably 15 other things that are coming up. And so sometimes I think as managers, we assume, or we forget that we live in this new normal, and we assume we send a work order for, you know, Brian's team to go deal with a water intrusion issue and mold and all this other things. And there are additional components that go into that now because of COVID, and we don't necessarily know what those are. And we're trying to understand why the timeline is expanded or changed from what we're used to normally. And so I think giving them the additional context around those would be helpful. Also, if you're running into issues with access, I know that some of the residents in some of the buildings we've worked with are uncomfortable letting you in to do work inside units, because either they're home or their kids are home, homeschooling, or they're working, or they just don't feel comfortable having someone come into their home from a safety perspective. And so we have to work through those challenges, but sometimes we don't necessarily get the communication back about what the delay is, or the delays being caused by these fears that a resident might have, and we need to make some adjustments. And so we're all having to be a little bit more creative about how we get in and do those things. And so I would say, you know, definitely the communication and the partnership, but also the understanding around, you know, the additional requirements that you guys are working under, and how you've changed, you know, your work process.
Right. You know, especially for a company like mine where we're dealing with emergency situations, you know, one of the first things that I have to do when I get a call in for an emergency, one of the first things I have to do is I have a COVID checklist that I have to go through. You know, that's, has anybody in the household been diagnosed? Has anybody been outside of the country? Has anybody been in large groups of people? You know, there's this whole list. And there has definitely been occasional pushback on these questions from tenants, from residents, and trying to explain that it's not just it's our safety, but it's your safety also. We're looking out on all directions. So I know we try to be as transparent and communicative as possible during these situations. And we try to work as closely with the property managers themselves, obviously, to do all these things also. What I have noticed is that we aren't getting as many direct calls from property managers, but we're getting direct calls from the residents now. Is that something that you can address? Is that something that is being directed, or is that just something that it's just kind of happening?
I think because people are at home and have more time, and either because their work schedule has changed or work life has changed, they're taking it upon themselves to look up more information. Oh, restoration management was sent out. Okay, I'm going to just call them directly instead of calling the property manager, because largely, in many cases, offices are still closed, or managers are working from home and
Right.
or remotely, and the direct phone call to your manager might take a little while because it's got to route through somewhere else to get connected to somebody's cell phone, or you may have to call and leave a message and then they call you back. And so they figure, well, I'll just call the vendor directly.
Right.
And they have time to do that and look that up these days. Some people have really got much more time on their hands than they used to have. So particularly if they're not commuting or doing any of that. And so I think they're taking it upon themselves to invest time in where they live,
Right.
whatever way that is for them.
It's interesting you brought that up, Ryan, and thanks, Kelly, for kind of expounding that a little bit. I've been seeing a little of that too, because they properties that we've worked on or have been working on, they have an issue come up and they just said, well, Reliant put on there, and so they kind of reach out to us directly. What we've been doing, and I'm just correcting, maybe this will help them expand on this with Kelly, and maybe then you can chime in too. That does happen, and obviously we'll definitely answer it and move forward. But I think and what we try to do is also make sure that whenever management company is involved, we ping them about that as soon as possible. So it's because oftentimes you folks need to get involved as well, especially when common areas affected, and it's also really important. So do you have any, either one of you, Kelly primarily, do you have any thoughts about that, or any tips for us to better handle that communication piece when we are contacted directly? Just to make sure we're getting the manager back involved in this too. On some level, without overburdening.
Yeah, I think it's always helpful, and we try to repeat this, right? Anytime you have a phone conversation with someone, you want to kind of close the loop with an email and sort of document what you talked about.
Yep.
So if you're speaking to residents directly, you sort of want to make sure you're emailing the resident and copying the manager and saying, hey, per our conversation today, here's what we discussed. So the manager's in the loop and does know that you've had that conversation, which I think is helpful. And then it just provides some documentation for downstream if we want to get into this he said, she said kind of conversation, and there isn't necessarily there's differing opinions about that, then we at least have some kind of backup documentation and trail to follow if it's 6 months later. And I certainly seem like 11 months into this year feels like 11 years instead of just 11 months. And so trying to remember what the heck happened in January or February pre-COVID is a whole different ball game. So if we've got some kind of emails and some documentation, I think that helps, particularly in phone conversations. But to the point of going back to the point of everybody's stress level and they're home and they're very invested, I do think from a customer service perspective, it doesn't always have to filter through the manager. And you guys should be able to be free to interact and be just as valued of a partner to the community as we are as a management team. And if you can answer those questions for the resident directly, they see so much more value in some of the things that you do and provide to them. And we don't need to necessarily always be the gatekeepers and funnelers of that communication. And I think sometimes they get great benefits talking to you guys and hearing it directly from the experts instead of our sort of translated version.
That's true.
Right. I know that, and I think most of us as vendors will probably agree. You know, when I am getting contacted directly by the homeowner or resident, I do try to tie in the property management as much as possible, just so that there are those clear lines of communication across everybody. And a lot of times, I shouldn't say a lot of times. Let me backtrack on that one. Occasionally, you know, if issues come up, it's nice to have that communication with the property manager who can act as a liaison to make sure that things go smoothly also. Sometimes we've had billing issues in the past where we've done this work and now there's questions and questions and questions and questions and delays. And it's amazing tying in the property manager into those communications, and the property manager is saying, no, this is how it works. We need to make sure that this is taken care of because we're all working together. So it is, I think, always a good idea to make sure that property management is tied into every single project that we do.
Yeah, well, you know, in the HOA world, you have a volunteer board of directors. It's different than an apartment community where those are owned by owners and this may be their job. In the HOA world, they have other jobs. They're volunteers who are doing this non-paid for their community, and they're responsible for authorizing, you know, millions of dollars of work or every year. And so they have a lot of questions, but this isn't their job. So they don't understand that some of this is normal or industry standard, and that there's a lot of education from a business partner perspective about industry standard. And there are just some of those board members who are very fearful or have had bad interactions with board members in the past, or with business partners in the past, and they feel like, you know, there's some kind of gotcha mentality out there, and they don't necessarily, you know, want to agree with that. And so it's a difficult line to walk, I think, between education and customer service, and, you know, just dealing with cranky people.
It can be touchy. Yeah. It can be touchy. I've been to plenty of board meetings with a lot of angry tenants before, so I feel for board members. I honestly do. I know the stress that they're under, and I know the pressure they're under to make sure that their community stays happy. And when you get those one or two angry residents in those board meetings, and they take up the entire hour or whatever of doing nothing but complaining about the speed bump on lane 6 because it's too high and it's making my gap.
Yeah, it's, I mean, you know, the pools, I'm sure Annetta can sympathize with me, you know, when the pool thing came out, when all of a sudden you could open pools in some projects in June, and then in August in other counties. I mean, it was like everybody wanted their pool open today, and it's like, that's not the way that it works. And boards were getting just crazy, you know, comments from the membership because everybody wanted the pools open. So, and I also am a board member at my community where I live, and we have a pool, and it was a whole thing, you know, with our residents about how we open the pool, and, you know, the rules around opening the pool, and everybody can just govern themselves. We don't need to adopt any rules. And it was lots of fun comments at meetings around those.
Yeah. Also the gyms too. Everyone wants the gym to open, but it's just, they don't realize that you have to have like some sort of safety guideline, and also get it approved by the city and everything. It's just like, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's a lot of administrative work that they don't realize. But I'm like, here's the link, you know, where you can find this information. And there's like these guidelines we have to follow. It's not easy. I wish I could open the gym too, but.
Yeah, trust me, I don't want to be on these phone calls just as much as you don't want to make them. Like, if we could open your gym, we would open your gym.
Yeah.
Kelly, how do you see this thing going, like the COVID and, well, the new normal going for the next like year? What things you would think that's going to change, and what things you think that are going to stay?
I really hope that boards continue to do some form of remote meetings. I think we're seeing much more engagement from homeowners in board meetings. We're getting more homeowner turnout. We're getting more board members willing to serve because they just have to go to a Zoom meeting and do a Zoom meeting instead of having to drive somewhere and, to the management office or go somewhere on the property if there isn't a location. So I do hope that the Zoom meetings continue and the remote meetings continue. It depends on what market we're in, but in some markets, clients are wanting to meet again in person. But I do hope that they continue to have a component of remote meetings that is a possibility, because I think from a industry perspective or state perspective, the safety guidelines are not going to change for any of us in terms of gatherings until there is a vaccine or a widely, way to protect yourself from this other than social distancing. And I don't also masks. I mean, if you have someone who's hard of hearing from a homeowner perspective in an audience, having to wear masks, size requirements on clubhouses in terms of capacity. And if you can only have 25% in there now, how do you kick out homeowners from a meeting? So we've been talking about all of those aspects of it. And so I do hope that the remote meetings continue, and that we are advising clients of that. Despite that, I am hopeful that we'll be able to, with our employees and staff, be able to get some more development time together, because I think it's hard to do training over Zoom and get everybody paying attention and staying on top of things. And the way the state legislature keeps changing things year after year, we want to make sure that everybody stays on top of the education they need to, for our clients. And so making sure that we continue to be able to do that. And I just also plumb miss getting together. I mean, to think about the idea that we're not going to have a holiday party this year, because you can't do the traditional holiday party. So we've got to do it differently. I would like to be able to have those things come back, but I don't think it's going to happen for a little while. So, and I miss seeing our business partners. I know our business partners miss being able to interact with us on a more human level than just through Zoom or trying to, kind of connect with us. So we do miss that portion of our interactions and the education we get from them. So I hope that we'll be able to resume some sense of normal with that later in 2021. But as of right now, I mean, we're planning for 2021 to continue much in the same fashion that we've continued with the last couple of months. So we're making adjustments to our office in terms of, who's in the office and how frequently people are in the office. But I do think that we'll, at least through June, continue to be working on kind of a modified schedule depending on what's going on with schools and kids at home and, people needing to, have anywhere to take their kids, right? So we're going to have some kind of a flexible work schedule for people. So.
Thank you, Kelly. Well, we have about a minute to end, but do you have like one thing that you can, because there's managers probably watching this, and something that you just want to share with them, or just kind of one advice that you've kind of rule over this time for you?
I don't know if you guys have heard Julia Souza speak from Alliance Community Resources, but she says something, and she said it, over the last 6 months, and it just continues to resonate with me, and I keep trying to remind it, but space and grace. Everybody has to understand that, give each other a little bit of grace, that we're all in a very unique situation and our life has changed, and that is very stressful for everybody. And we have to give everybody the space to make adjustments in the time that they need to make those adjustments to whatever the new normal looks like for them, and the space to work within those adjustments. So she says that a lot, space and grace. And I really love that kind of comment from her, and it has resonated with me. And I just appreciate that she gives us that reminder and uses that. So I have kind of just kept that in the back of my mind. It's okay that today is a little bit stressful because things are changing, and let's get the space to deal with it and the grace to say that it's okay to have the time to do that, and not to have all the answers all the time.
That's so
okay
good.
not to be okay.
It's okay not to be okay, yes, because some days it's not okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Kelly. Yes, some grace for everyone. Well, thank you again, Kelly, for taking this time with us and sharing some of your perspective I hope that our viewers will get something from this conversation. And again, we're here to help with anything we can. If you have any comments or questions that you want to share with us, you can always type them at the bottom, or you can also text to the number below. And either you want to text some questions or information, or someone that you like to see on the next one, we can try to contact that person. But once again, thank you so much, Kelly and everyone, for joining us today. And we'll see you guys on the next one.
Kelly, thanks for being. Appreciate it.
Nice to see you all.
Good to see you. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.